Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas. And today I'm sitting down with Tinku Saini, who is the co-founder and CEO at Tarka Indian Kitchen. And we are going to be chatting about all the fun stuff when it comes to business in general, entrepreneurship, what this whole crazy journey is like. And getting into the restaurant industry specifically, which will be kind of fun. So Tika, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to be here with me today. Excited to dive in. Why don't we just start with just a little bit of background? Give us, kind of the 10,000-foot view of who you are, like what got you into this crazy industry, and tell us about the restaurant.
Yeah, so I'll start with the restaurant. We are a fast casual Indian restaurant chain with, I hate the word chain, but we'll get into that later, with locations in Austin, Houston, and San Antonio. We've got 9 currently. I'm working on our 10th location in San Antonio that should open before the end of the year. And the ultimate goal is to be the premier Indian food concept in the U.S. There are a few other people who are out there trying to do the same thing, but we feel like we've got an edge for a variety of reasons. Again, I'm sure we'll talk through some of those. In terms of how I got into the restaurant business, I don't know how much time you have, but I don't think I can give you the full story. I was actually going to be an English literature teacher. That's what I wanted to do, all throughout high school and my early college career. I was in Seattle, living in Seattle, and just got a job at a restaurant, to make some extra money, just as college kids do. And they saw something in me. It was a contemporary Indian restaurant concept out there called Chutneys, but it was full service. And they'd grown to about 3 or 4 locations out there. And they saw something in me, gave me a unit to manage, then another one after that. And while I was there, a friend of mine, or not a friend, I'm sorry, a cousin had just moved from St. Louis to Austin, and he had come to visit me in Seattle. And he said, there's nothing quite like this in Texas. And, when you're in Seattle and you're thinking about going to Texas, you're thinking, man, I'm going to be going back in age 25 years in time, and I don't know, big hair and cowboy boots. That's all I really knew about Texas, frankly, back in the day. But when we came to Austin, just completely fell in love with it. A lot of the similarities of what was happening in Seattle was going on here. The music scene there was grunge. Here it was, a little bit different than that, obviously. The universities, all of that. So we saw something there that clicked. And, the way it is, restaurants sometimes in cosmopolitan world-class cities, all food has sort of slowly evolved to a higher level, whereas in the Midwest and the South, takes a little bit longer. So what was evolutionary there was revolutionary in Austin. And I became real good friends with our head chef there, and he moved down with me. And in 1998, myself, my wife, and my 2 cousins opened Clay Pit in downtown Austin, which has been an institution there now. We then sold that about 10 years later to focus on growing family, and looked at other things to do. But once restaurants get into your blood, and if you do them well, there's not a lot else that can bring you that same sort of adrenaline and heartache. But we thought about doing something else, and then we'd always had this concept of fast casual Indian. This was Chipotle, Pei Wei, Zoe's were really starting to hit their stride, and nobody was doing it for Indian food. And we saw that with fast casual Indian, it matched where we were in life at the time. Like, have young kids. I don't have time to go eat for 2 hours at a fancy, full service restaurant every day. It was about convenience. It's about bringing food home to my family. And so all of the things that were important to me personally at that time also, I think, was something that was growing in nationwide. And that happened at the time when there was the Great Recession was taking place. Mm-hmm. And so people were trading down from higher end to more value and convenience oriented food. And when we opened that location in 2009, lines out the door and around the corner, much more than we would have ever expected. And it's just kind of grown from there.
That is fantastic. So, open original location 2009, if I heard that correctly.
South Austin in 2009. Yep.
Up to 9 locations, working on your 10th. At what point did that kind of moment switch where you went from one to 2 locations? Did you go straight from one to two? Do you go one to a couple? Like, what was that transition like going from that first one on to the next?
Yeah. So the first one, we, again, as I mentioned, I mean, we thought back in the day we were looking at what Payway does in sales, $2.5 million, AUVs back then. I think they've slipped a little since then, but anyway, we were always thinking, if we could do half of that, we would be very, very happy. Well, we opened at well over half of that, and today that's a $4.5 million store out of a 3,100 square foot location. So when you see that happening, your wheels are turning, man. I need to replicate this. I need to prove this isn't just a flash in the pan. Can it be done again? Is Indian food really ready for sort of that level? And it just so turned out that Endeavor Real Estate, who's a big developer in Austin, the first location was their center. They were building, or they were just finishing, they were at the earn-out stage of selling a center, the IKEA shopping center in Round Rock called University Oaks. So based on what they saw in that first location, and just seeing the quality of the operation, they essentially built out our second store that was in Round Rock exactly 1 year later. Now, Round Rock was the opposite experience, where it was dreadfully slow, and you learn a lot more from failure than success, frankly. But we knew it was going to be slow because it was up out in suburbia. It was a play on the future, and we were willing to do that. We didn't know how slow it was going to be, and that led to a lot of innovation from our end. So it took us a couple more years before we opened the third location, which is our North Austin location in Anderson Lane. And then when we started thinking about going to other markets, we were in Colorado, we were in Arizona, we were thinking, how could we expand this? I'm so happy that we didn't do that, and we grew concentrically from our center, because logistically we would have been spread way too thin, and I don't think that we would have been as successful. So we came back and we opened a location in San Antonio, which was the first one out of our home market, far enough away, different enough of a market to be from Austin to prove our concept, but not so far away that my team here couldn't quickly, travel down an hour and take care of that store as well.
Oh, that's amazing. I've got so many questions, and I'm going to try and keep us somewhat on track of things here, because we could probably sit here for 2 hours.
Well,
I
I'm an English major,
chat.
so I tend to be wordy. So stop me. Feel free to stop me at any time, please.
Well, I want to ask, there's a couple of things that come to mind when you start looking at replication, duplication, getting out and starting multiple locations, having one that's, wildly successful very quickly, another one that's a little bit slower. So when you look at, let's maybe talk about marketing first. I always like to ask a few questions around marketing. It's one of those areas that's vital to every business out there, but not every business owner is super savvy when it comes to effective marketing, especially out of the gate, right? So I like to ask some questions around that. And as you went from 1 to 2 locations, 2 to 3, and then beyond to now 9th and looking at 10th, what has been the philosophy to marketing, especially as you launch in a new location? How do you get that word out there? What has worked for y'all as you continue to build out your brand?
I think maybe this is cliche, maybe it's not, but we don't do a ton of paid advertising, nothing like that. Really, for us, our current biggest form of marketing is our loyalty program. So we have over 107,000 people within our loyalty program that we can, in a very targeted way, tell them, offer them a promotion, win back if they haven't been there 30 or 60 days, send them a birthday gift, keeps us on top of mind as well. And also because it has the order history, we can it would be terrible if we marketed a chicken tikka masala to a vegetarian or vegan person. And so we have the ability to segment it in that sort of a personalized way and really drive engagement. Beyond that, really, it's been digital advertising and social media more recently. But in the beginning days, especially after our experience in the first location, we are real big believers that just spend all your efforts making the most kick-ass food you can and doing it with a smile and providing the ambiance, and enough people that are first timers become regulars, and they help spread the word for us. Now, more recently, we have leaned into primarily Instagram and a little bit of TikTok and Facebook, and then some digital advertising on Google. Sometimes it's a little difficult with traditional advertising to know what is the actual return you're making. How many views of a digital billboard are translating into foot traffic or actual orders? Now, you can do it a little bit more digitally, but with traditional forms of media, it's been a little bit more difficult. So long story short, I think focus on operations, and then our rewards program, and then tapping into some social media and digital marketing.
Excellent. From the digital marketing standpoint, like where you don't have the loyalty yet, if you were to go and take one of those locations that's completely out of state and say we are going to launch over here next, and nobody knows anything about the restaurant because they've never even been close enough to ever see it, is there like a particular channel that you would choose to use more primarily over the others? If you're looking at digital, would you choose Instagram over TikTok, or would you choose Google over another? Like what's your feeling when you look at, if you were to make that type of a shift, what would you choose?
Yeah, so there's a few different buckets there, but obviously Google is the big behemoth. You can't avoid them. You definitely should, try to get at the top of the search results, whether it's through SEO of your own website, or there's a number of ways to do that without, specifically paying for display ads, etc. But also, making sure that you're very focused. You are refining your search terms and the things that people are using to find you and or your competitors, so you can make sure those are targeted. And then, in the beginning days with delivery companies, we used to have a real hate relationship with them, frankly, but it's definitely evolved over time, where we think of it as a true partnership. They allow premium pricing. They negotiated their delivery commission, so now we're cost neutral on those orders at this point. And one of the things that those guys have done is spent billions of dollars on getting people to use their platform. And so a lot of they now offer, whether it's display higher up in their platform, or if you do an offer, they'll feature you, etc. And we found that to be a very effective way of getting our name out there, especially places like you were saying that haven't that don't know anything about us, because they can see the beautiful pictures, and it's just a matter of getting in people's in front of people's eyes. We know once they taste the food, they're going to come back. So and then Yelp is another partner that in the past, boy, I hated them so much. They were so hard sell, and they did not care about if things were effective or not. But they definitely have come a long way, and people use Yelp. We use that much more than TripAdvisor, for instance, or Google and Yelp are the two that we make sure we respond to all the reviews, and try to win people back if they've had a bad experience and things of that nature.
Beautiful. I want to shift the conversation a little bit. Still kind of looking at the duplication, going out, launching new locations, things like that. But rather than from a marketing side, I want to ask a little bit about team building. So obviously, you go and you open up a new restaurant. There's got to be a team that can run that, right? Whether that's having a GM in place that can run that particular location, to the staff that you bring on. What's been the approach to find the right team, or hire or recruit the right team in the location? How do you tackle that as you grow, fairly rapidly with multiple locations?
Yeah. So, it just feels like in the last, gosh, I don't know, 4 years now, the entire world has changed like three times. COVID had its challenges, and you had the Great Resignation and people leaving our industry, and then on the way back, there's all these inflationary things going on, wage pressures escalating. Um, I would say this: our primary mode of finding people higher up in our company are people lower in our company. So we are big promoters from within. That's hugely important for us. They already know our culture. They know what we're about. They know the job of the person. I mean, if you're a head cashier and looking to be a front of house manager, they know exactly what that job is already like. Whereas, with somebody from the outside, it's kind of like dating. You're always putting the best face of yourself forward in both directions, but you don't get to know who they really are until they're kind of gone through the training and left to themselves, and at that point it sucks to invest that kind of time and then it not work out. So we're big believers in promoting from within. If we're bringing in somebody from the outside, regardless of the position that they're in, my personal philosophy has always been hire based on character and personality. We can train you. We couldn't have gotten to 10 locations if we didn't have an effective training system. So we are very, very confident that, if you are motivated and if for a front of house manager, you're very personable and, customer service oriented, that, we take pains to ask some questions to kind of make sure people are being honest with us in interviews. You can't always tell, but, we feel like we have a good handle on it. But it's always been about that personality and character first. And then, we do also obviously look at experience, if they've been in the restaurant industry before, if they have relevant experience, et cetera. But character and personality first and foremost. And then we typically like to, especially any key holders, we like for them to come in and spend a day with us. We'll pay you just to come and hang out and just check it out. And maybe, if we ask you to do some knife skills, you'll show us what you can do, or front of house, talk to a customer. But that's been our primary approach, hire on personality and character, and be willing to train the rest.
I love that. And I want to touch on training really quick before we, jump off kind of to the next topic. I've talked to a lot of business owners over the last several months, and training has always been a really important factor, whether it's, true skills for on the job, like we have to be able to do this particular thing within the job, to just how do you, what are the most important skills to be training any employee? So I'll kind of open it up as a bit of a broad question for you here, but in the restaurant industry overall, are there any like skills that you feel are really important for just about all employees in the industry to be training on, to be learning things that maybe y'all are focused on, uh, you know, training and building up within your team members?
Yeah. We talked about how the world has changed. One of the things that's changed is every single person seems addicted to their personal device. And whether that coupled with social media, it really feels like people are a little more socially awkward out there. And just making sure that they have the right mindset, that they can just make eye contact with you when you're speaking. I mean, real basic things that you wouldn't think you'd have to train in the past now do become a point of focus. Outside of that, is there anything we specifically look for? That we want to train on? Nothing immediately jumps to mind, but really, it's about, for us, because Indian cuisine is foreign to a lot of people, we have to introduce them to the cuisine itself. We find that our mission is to introduce as many people as we can to Indian food. And we believe that Indian food deserves to be in the upper echelon, just like Italian, burgers, pizza, Mexican, Chinese. When you're going out to eat somewhere, there's no reason why you shouldn't think of Indian food in exactly the same ways. Unfortunately, in the past, because of the ma and pa type operation, some movies making fun of Indian food and being too spicy, etc. It's kind of gotten a little bit of a bad rap, but done right, it is phenomenal. So educating our customers, realistically, our team members are the first people that we need to make sure we educate them. So in the front of the house, it's about making sure everybody tastes everything, unless they have some dietary restrictions, because we want them to be active participants. Again, this is not pizza. This is not burgers. In a burger place, shoot, I could just have a kiosk. I don't need to order from anybody or anybody to kind of explain things to me, which with Indian food you do. And so, we train our cashiers, our managers to think of it that way. Talk, engage with the customers. Do they like lamb or chicken? Do they like it spicy or do they like it rich and creamy? And then be active participants in their food experience rather than just being passive order takers. In the back of the house, because we make everything essentially fresh to order at every one of our locations. We have started to outsource a little bit, but it's still scratch-made kitchen type stuff that we're doing here. And so initially, maybe it feels a little bit, foreign, as I mentioned before, to people. But at the end of the day, butchering meat is butchering meat. If you have the knife skills, you can pull it off. You have to teach them some of the nuance, because with Indian food, there's complexity, there's layers of flavors, and it's not just throwing a bunch of stuff into a pot at one time and just cooking it off. And so there is a little bit of a learning curve there. But again, I think because of some of the systems we have in place that we're always looking to refine and do better on, use technology to our benefit, that we feel like, anybody can be taught to do that.
That is fantastic. I absolutely love all of that. I had never really thought about, educating on how to introduce the cuisine to people that have not tried it before, and being able to be part of that experience. That is like super cool.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
there's so many questions I'd love to just, if we had hours upon hours, I could just be chatting with you here, but we've certainly covered a lot of ground so far. I want to get to some of our rapid fire questions as we start to wrap up here today. I'll have to, connect with you, make sure that we continue this conversation, because my head is just filled with so many things that I want to know about. But with that, let's go to a few rapid fire questions here. I've got 4 of them. Intention is top ahead answers for each of them. I know we probably could go deep on them, but we're going to try best we can to stay top ahead on each. But first one here is, what is your key to success?
Key to success for us is that treat your team members and treat your guests right. The rest of it will take care of itself. It is really, especially these days, all about how engaged and happy your people are to work with you, and that translates happy cooks, make better food, happy front of house employees, engage more with our guests who are walking through the door. And it's really about making sure that we don't that we don't sacrifice on our core values, which is making fresh to order Indian food that's customizable, approachable, and affordable.
Beautiful. What's one piece of advice you give to other business owners or entrepreneurs?
Well, I think I would start with just make sure that you are authentic. I mean, like for us, Indian food is very varied, and we still to this day get people who come in and say you're not traditional or you're not authentic, and sometimes it drives you a little bit crazy. But there are other Indian fast casuals that are Indian street food or Indo-Chinese. We're not. We are hardcore North Indian cuisine, Punjabi cuisine. And so curries, kabobs, biryanis. So really staying true to your core, and then just living your mission and what you're wanting to try to do. And for us, again, that comes down to introducing as many people as we can to the greatness of this cuisine.
Beautiful. What's one book that either you're reading now or have read most recently?
So one book that I had to reread, because we also gave this to all of our salaried employees, was Start with the Why. And I
Oh
believe
yeah.
that's an important. I mean, it's pretty widely read. I'm not saying that it's that very unique in that, but just that whole concept of ensuring that when you are telling someone what you need them to do, that you can effectively communicate to them why you're asking them to do that. What is going to be the tangible benefit to them and the people around them for taking that action? And I think that that's an extremely important lesson to learn. It also works with managers who are trying to get a team member to get along with the program, et cetera. I mean, if you explain the why to them, they connect a lot more to it.
I love it. That's such a great recommendation for anybody out there, whether you're an entrepreneur, business owner, team member, anything, right? I got it back on my shelf over there somewhere on that list there. But all right, last rapid fire question before we kind of start to finalize and wrap up here today. This is kind of just a fun one. As you look at the business, if you could grab, a pinch of magic dust and sprinkle it on just one area in your business and it would magically improve overnight, where would you choose to put that magic?
Yeah, I'm actually currently right in the middle of doing what I'm about to tell you, which is, we've always been very technology focused, and I like to be a leader in that space. So we had online ordering, we had a mobile app, we had loyalty program long before COVID started. And it really, frankly, was a huge driver of our success through COVID and why we've gone from AUVs of 1.7 million before COVID to 2.35 million, last year. But with any implementation of technology or systems like Restaurant 365 as a management solution, it is excruciating and painful to actually get from the start to having everybody buy in and really start using it the way we need it to be, because we're paying all kinds of money for it. We want to make sure that we get full use out of it. So I am currently in the middle of revamping our online ordering system and mobile app. What I wish I could do is wave a magic wand and just fast forward in time about 4 months and just be able to get to the point where it's already there. But magic wand, it would be, getting to best in class in these technology platforms. The magic would be, how do you do that without pain? But there is no gain without pain, so I think it would be useless.
It's amazing how any really technology transition like that in any industry I've ever experienced there's always that challenge piece because it's the implementation of it, and then you have it all working and it's fantastic, but there's a little bit of transition there that's not
Yeah.
always the most fun to go through. But before we get to the final question, to wrap up the conversation, where can we advise others to go to find out more information, to connect with you, and just watch all the amazing things that y'all are doing? I know you mentioned a few of the locations, but where can we advise the audience to go, and if they haven't experienced their first experience of Indian cuisine?
Well, I would start with our website, but we are in Austin and Houston. We have 4 locations in each of those markets. We have 2 in, or one in San Antonio, and the second one that we're building there. Website, LinkedIn, any of our social media pages. Email me directly at tinku@tarkaindiankitchen.com. Not sure if I'm supposed to share that, but there it is. We don't care. It's all good. I love talking to people about Indian food and the concept. So just like when you reached out to, sure, let's do it. I want to talk. We believe that Indian food is ready for its moment. And so anybody who wants to experience that for themselves or talk to us about it, we're more than happy to do that.
Beautiful. Absolutely love it. As we wrap up, we got one final question for you today, and then we'll wrap out our conversation here. But I always like to end on this one. That is this: what is most inspiring to you today?
Most inspiring. I think it goes a little bit into what we talked about earlier in terms of what is the reason for our success. And it's become even more important now than before. And that is figuring out the balance between paying all of your team members a fair wage and having them enjoy the job, and also be able to offer them a work-life balance, counterbalanced with what kind of price points do we need to charge to make that mission
Mm.
possible. So twofold mission. One is to introduce Indian food to as many people as we can, but more and more as I've sort of grown into the position, it's more about what do we need to do to ensure that our team members feel good about where they work and want to stay with you and want to grow with your company. So to me, what inspires me is the 250 plus employees that we have across 9 locations. When it's 10, it will be about 275 or 280. But just doing right by them, I think, is the most inspiring thing, and one of the main sort of KPIs to success that I see for us and myself.
Phenomenal. Absolutely love it. Tinku, I want to just say thank you again for taking the time to be here with me today. This has been one of my favorite conversations. You've got a personality that just shows through on this here, and I just want to say thank you for taking the time to be here.
Well, I appreciate you having me on and allowing me to share some of what we have learned along the way.